I'm Josh McGarry, and I've been told that I can be hard to understand sometimes. But with some help from technology, maybe we can fix that. This is Frameworks.
Okay, so have you ever been scrolling online and just felt like you've stepped into a completely upside-down world? You know that feeling, right? That sense of total disorientation where arguments just don't add up, and it seems like someone's personal feelings matter way more than the actual facts. In this explainer, we're going to dig into a framework that tries to give a name to this modern mental virus.
So how do we even begin to talk about this feeling? Well, the research I've been digging into actually proposes a specific diagnosis for what might be going on.
Okay, so the term is maladaptive inverted hermeneutics, or MIH for short. Now, I want to be super clear here. This isn't something you're going to find in a formal psychology textbook. It's a proprietary model, a specific framework that my research uses to understand a pretty dysfunctional way of interpreting the world. And it all stems from one core belief, that there's no such thing as meaningful objective truth.
All right, so if MIH is like a mental virus, how does it actually work? How does it infect our thinking? Well, the core mechanism is surprisingly simple, and it really just boils down to what we value more, truth or our own personal experience. It all kicks off with this philosophical idea called qualia. And don't let the word scare you. It's actually really straightforward. Qualia is just the fancy term for your unique personal experience of something. Think about the color red. The way you see it is your own personal qualia. It's your internal, subjective measurement of the world around you.
Normally, we operate with this basic understanding that objective truth, what's actually real, is more important than how we feel about it. Let's call objective truth QT, and our personal experience QE. In a healthy mindset, QT is always greater than QE. But what this MIH framework suggests is that our culture is literally flipping that equation. It's arguing that QE, your personal experience, is actually more important than QT, the truth itself.
And this is where it gets really wild. This leads to the final, most extreme step in the whole process. It's not just that your experience trumps truth. Your experience becomes your truth. Your feelings become the facts. And when that happens, well, there's no outside reality left to even appeal to.
But you might be thinking, okay, but why does this feel so now? You know? If this is a human tendency, why does it seem to be on overdrive today? Well, the research points to one huge accelerator, our technology.
Think about it. My research and conversations show that social media has created the perfect breeding ground for MIH to spread like wildfire. Online, the loudest person often wins, not the most accurate one. Deep, complex relationships get flattened down to metrics like likes and shares. And because information is instant, those old-school gatekeepers who used to filter for quality, they're mostly gone. Popular opinion can start to feel way more real than, actual reality.
And this isn't just some abstract internet thing. The research I've seen suggests this whole inversion of reality has some serious, real-world consequences, both for our culture and for our own mental health.
Because when you unplug from objective truth, you can basically flip anything on its head. As this model shows, things we've always seen as good can suddenly be framed as evil. Something like pleasure becomes suffering. A call for accountability and love can get twisted into merciless law. It's a fundamental scrambling of our moral compass.
This quote here really hits it home. You see this playing out in conversations around mental health, and especially with the whole trend of deconstructing your beliefs. Now, questioning things can be super healthy, but the research argues that when you do it through this MIH lens, where your personal experience is the only truth, it can be really dangerous. You can end up literally deconstructing your foundation until you're just in a free fall with nothing real left to hold on to. And according to the theory of MIH, this mindset often takes root when people are already feeling hopeless. The theologian Francis Schaeffer talked about living below the line of despair. It's this state where your worldview is so broken and contradictory that it offers you no real answers. When you're in that state, MIH isn't some cool philosophy. It's more like a desperate coping mechanism.
Okay, so if it feels like we're living in this increasingly upside-down world, how in the world do we find our way back to what's real? Is there a path to flip things right side up again?
So, interestingly, the MIH model itself points to a potential solution by borrowing a pattern from the biblical narrative. The framework breaks it down into 3 stages. First, an original design, where truth comes first. QT is greater than QE. Then, an inversion, what the text calls the fall, where human experience takes over. But it doesn't just stop there. The final stage is a correction, where that flawed human wisdom gets inverted again to point back toward objective truth.
So get this. According to this framework, the antidote actually uses the same principle of inversion, but in a corrective way. The source material calls this an inverted apologetic, another one of their proprietary models. Step 1 is just to acknowledge our own human tendency to get it backward. Step 2 is to purposefully challenge popular assumptions, to flip them over and see their flaws. And finally, step 3 is to re-anchor your understanding in a source of truth that exists completely outside of your own shifting feelings.
And all of this leaves us with a massive question, not just for ourselves, but for everyone coming up after us. In a culture that seems to be normalizing this mental virus, how do we equip the next generation to cut through all the noise? How do we teach them to navigate this upside-down world and find something that's actually real?